Paris Fashion Week has never been short on spectacle. Every season, cameras crowd the pavements, waiting for that one arrival that turns an ordinary runway into a cultural headline. This year, that expectation surrounded one name, Meghan Markle. After months of relative quiet, her sudden appearance promised something cinematic. A woman once defined by monarchy stepping again into the world stage, this time on her own terms. The world anticipated triumph, not tension. Yet what unfolded in Paris was quieter, stranger, and far more revealing than any scandal. It wasn't the collapse of an image. It was the slow, graceful unmasking of one. The doors of the Balenciaga venue opened to a wall of flashes. The air carried that peculiar hush of coordinated chaos, heels clicking, journalists murmuring, stylists whispering last-minute directions. When Meghan entered, heads turned, not in frenzy, but in calibration. For years she had embodied a paradox, adored and disputed, familiar yet unreachable. She moved with practiced precision, the posture of someone who understood the choreography of public life. Cameras captured the tilt of her chin, the half-smile perfected in palace corridors. But beneath the rhythm of shutters there was something offbeat, an unplaceable stillness. The excitement that usually follows celebrity arrivals felt delayed, almost uncertain, as though Paris itself was trying to decide how to receive her. In that hesitation lay the seed of the story. Inside, the atmosphere changed. Balenciaga shows are notorious for extremes, either theatrical noise or reverent quiet, but this silence felt personal. Observers later described a subtle distance between the Duchess and the room itself. Conversations dimmed when she passed, not out of hostility but evaluation. Fashion people are fluent in subtext. A nod from an editor, a glance from a stylist, a camera turning slightly away. These gestures speak louder than applause. Meghan seemed aware of it all, her expression poised but alert. The applause that followed other arrivals was polite, almost procedural. In that moment, she was both participant and exhibit, a woman testing whether her influence still held weight beyond headlines. The silence didn't condemn her, it measured her. And in the industry that worships relevance, silence is the most dangerous sound. Fashion thrives on narrative. For every collection unveiled on the runway, 10 stories swirl backstage. Who was invited, who wasn't, who came unannounced, who's being quietly replaced. When Meghan appeared, the murmurs multiplied. Some debated whether her presence signaled a partnership. Others whispered about a last-minute seating reshuffle. None of it was malicious, merely the natural gossip ecosystem that powers couture. Yet the swirl of uncertainty had an effect, transforming an intended statement of confidence into a question mark. Social media amplified it within minutes. Photos of her poised expression and minimalist outfit flooded feeds. Comments split along familiar lines: admiration, critique, speculation. In the digital era, perception moves faster than reality. Meaning is assigned before facts arrive. By the time the show ended, Meghan's appearance had already become a mirror reflecting how people wanted to see her icon, intruder, survivor, strategist. The truth, as always, was quieter. Since stepping away from royal duties, Meghan had carried an invisible burden to prove that leaving the crown hadn't dimmed her light. Each appearance, each speech, each partnership became a referendum on independence. Paris was supposed to mark the next chapter. The symbolism was almost literary. Diana's remembered grace, couture as redemption, the idea of rebirth through fashion. But expectation can be a trap. The public rarely allows reinvention without a price, and the higher the anticipation, the sharper the scrutiny. Observers noted the calculated simplicity of her look: understated black, clean lines, minimal jewelry. It was the opposite of royal opulence, almost a manifesto in fabric form. But simplicity invites interpretation. Some saw elegance, others saw effort. The more restrained the presentation, the louder the analysis. Paris didn't mock her, it examined her. Every narrative surrounding Meghan eventually drifts toward a single comparison. Diana's shadow looms over every flashbulb, every humanitarian headline, every emotional interview. Meghan herself has acknowledged the parallel, at times embracing it, at times rejecting it. In Paris, that shadow returned, not as tragedy but as reflection. The city that mourned Diana decades ago now hosted her son's wife in a moment that felt both homage and departure. Cameras captured Meghan passing near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the same route that became part of Diana's story. For some, it was coincidence, for others, symbolism. The internet, always hungry for pattern, filled the gap with meaning. Yet what mattered wasn't intent but perception. In the cultural imagination, places remember. Paris remembers Diana, and by walking those streets, Meghan inevitably walked within that memory. The comparison is impossible to escape, and perhaps that's the curse of legacy. It doesn't fade, it echoes. Those close to the fashion world noted a dissonance that evening. Meghan projected assurance, yet the environment responded with reserve. It wasn't rejection, merely recognition that influence changes form when detached from institution. During her royal years, every appearance carried the weight of representation, clothes as diplomacy, smiles as policy. In Paris, stripped of titles and protocols, she faced something different, herself. Observers described a woman navigating the fragile boundary between celebrity and stateswoman, between icon and individual. For years, her narrative had been defined by external forces: press, palace, pundits. This moment, however, placed her entirely in control of her image, and paradoxically, that control exposed the uncertainty beneath it. Cameras can sense hesitation the way instruments catch static. They record not just what is performed, but what is restrained. Paris saw both. When the show ended, applause filled the venue, brief, professional, the kind that marks the completion of art rather than adoration. Attendees dispersed, analyzing silhouettes, fabrics, and celebrity turnout. Within hours, editors and critics filed their reports. Few mentioned Meghan beyond a sentence or two. Some simply listed her name among attendees. To the untrained eye, that might seem like dismissal. But in fashion's coded language, it signaled something subtler: neutrality. For an industry obsessed with hierarchy, neutrality can be both mercy and exile. Brands collaborate with figures who extend their aura. When that aura is in question, distance becomes polite. Meghan's team surely understood this calculus. Influence is measurable, not in applause but in invitations returned. Whether Paris would open its doors again remained uncertain. And yet neutrality is not the end of relevance. It's the pause before reinvention. Leaving the venue, Meghan maintained composure, flanked by security, cameras trailing onlookers calling her name. To the public, the images appeared triumphant. Another headline, another stage conquered. But inside that composure was reflection. Every public figure eventually faces the gap between image and identity. And Paris had turned that gap into a mirror. She had pursued independence, visibility, and control, all noble pursuits, but discovered that freedom also means standing without the noise that once validated her. The narrative wasn't humiliation, it was evolution. The silence she encountered wasn't judgment, it was honesty. Because Paris, more than any other city, understands artifice. It celebrates style but demands substance. It can crown an outsider in one season and forget them the next. The city forgives failure, even arrogance, but never insincerity. Beyond the runway, Meghan's career sits at a crossroads of politics, entertainment, and activism. Her projects with global organizations, her podcast ambitions, her production efforts, all show intent but also reveal a struggle for narrative coherence. She is a woman trying to define purpose in a world that consumes personalities faster than they can mature. Observers note that Meghan's challenge is not visibility but clarity. The more she tries to be everything, royal, celebrity, humanitarian, the harder it becomes for audiences to decide what she truly represents. Paris symbolized that tension, a quest for authenticity staged in the most artificial arena possible. And perhaps that irony is what gives the story its depth. History often softens judgment. Figures once ridiculed for ambition are later praised for vision. Meghan may still occupy that in-between space where perception hasn't caught up with intent. Every generation needs its cultural mirror, the figure who exposes our contradictions. Meghan, willingly or not, has become that mirror. Adored for independence, criticized for using it, praised for speaking out, blamed for overexposure. Paris didn't create that paradox. It simply illuminated it under couture lighting. When the lights dimmed and the guests dispersed, Paris returned to its usual rhythm: taxis outside, champagne glasses stacked, cleaners folding chairs. But something lingered in the air. A quiet reminder that fame is most fragile when mistaken for identity. Meghan Markle's night in Paris wasn't a failure. It was a reflection, a tableau of how modern celebrity blurs between authenticity and performance. She arrived seeking affirmation and left with something more valuable: perspective. In the end, the city didn't expose her. It revealed her humanity, the same vulnerability that once made her story resonate with millions. Because the truth Paris whispered that night was simple: grace isn't granted by title or applause. It's what remains when both are gone.